You live in a world of noise. Opinions flood every corner of your attention. Crisis competes with triviality. People react before they think. Judgment comes before observation. Everyone wants control, but few understand what it is. This is why Stoicism matters, not as a trend, not as a quote on a coffee mug, but as a way to live with clarity when the world loses its structure. Most people speak of Stoicism as detachment or endurance. They miss the architecture behind the mindset. They miss the system that gives the philosophy its strength. There is a hidden layer of Stoicism, one that no one talks about, not because it is secret, but because it is hard. It requires more than belief. It requires practice. It requires discipline. It requires a commitment to live each moment on purpose. This video is not about recycled ideas or poetic sentiment. It is a return to the depth of Stoic thought, a journey into the structure that built some of the most resilient minds in history. You will not find escapism here. You will find structure. You will find responsibility. You will find power, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that governs the self. No one talks about this part because it's not glamorous, because it doesn't sell, because it demands change. But this is where real transformation begins, and if you're willing to look deeper, to think more clearly, and to live more deliberately, then you're exactly where you need to be. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Unseen Foundation of Stoicism. Most people recognize Stoicism through its popular quotes and surface-level ideas. Accept what you cannot control, discipline the self, and maintain inner calm. But few explore the deeper structure beneath these ideas. The Stoics did not form a vague outlook on life. They built a system. They built a framework of action that begins with perception, flows into judgment, and ends in decision. Every Stoic practice comes from this process. What they built was a method to examine life, a way to strip distraction from clarity, a way to remain in control even when everything around you is in chaos. It was not meant for one class of people. It was not a philosophy of avoidance or resignation. It was a way to live with complete presence and absolute integrity. This is the Stoicism few people talk about. Not the quotes, but the process behind the quotes. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca did not present a brand. They lived by a method that began with self-inspection. Before you act, you observe the mind. Before you speak, you question the judgment. Before you feel anger or panic, you examine the belief behind it. This is the inner mechanics of Stoicism. The Stoics saw thought as the root of all behavior. They understood that every outward act is the final step of a process that begins in the mind. A belief takes shape, a perception forms, and that internal alignment gives rise to speech or action. Action is not born in impulse. It is born in what the mind accepts as true, necessary, and right. So their daily task was not to simply act Stoic. Their task was to train the mind to be clear, the eyes to see accurately, and the decisions to follow what reason approved. Thinking clearly was not a side habit. It was the foundation of everything else. To them, clarity was a form of duty. They believed that unclear thoughts would corrupt action, weaken discipline, and introduce chaos into the soul. So they examined each impression that entered the mind. They asked, "Is this true?" They asked, "Does this help me live in agreement with nature?" They applied their philosophy to the smallest details because they knew the small becomes the pattern. To perceive truthfully was also a form of courage. The Stoics did not pretend that life was easier than it was. They did not hide from discomfort. They trained themselves to see things as they are, not as they wish them to be. It takes strength to live without illusion. It takes awareness to resist false judgments. And it takes structure to stay committed to reason when emotion wants to lead. To live deliberately means every decision is made with intent. You do not drift. You do not copy. You do not live through others. You live according to a structure you chose. You return to it every day. You correct what drifts. You reinforce what works. Few people talk about this sequence. Few understand that Stoicism is not a mood or mindset. It is a framework. And few apply it with structure, which is why few gain its full power. Chapter 2. The Stoic System of Filtering the World. The world presents inputs. You do not control them. A comment, a delay, a shift in plans, a failure. These are events. They do not yet carry emotion. The Stoics understood this clearly. What you experience first is sensation. What follows is your interpretation. Emotion is built on that interpretation. Action flows from the emotion. So to change how you live, you change how you interpret. This system is the core of Stoic training. You filter inputs through a disciplined mind. You pause between event and response. You ask, is this up to me? Is this permanent? Is this essential? Is this how I want to see it? These questions break the chain. They stop the reflex. They rewire your approach to life. Modern Stoic practice often begins with affirmations or repetition of key quotes. But real Stoicism begins with pausing before reaction. It begins with practicing that space between stimulus and response. In that space, the Stoic inserts reason. You are not passive, you are not weak, but your power must be organized, it must be structured, it must be guided by principle. It must not be thrown away on what is not yours to change. It must not be wasted on defending your ego, chasing comfort, or reacting to everything that disturbs your preference. It must be directed toward what you can control, toward what you can influence, and toward what aligns with your duty. Seneca said, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." Anticipation of pain is often worse than the pain itself. Most people create more hardship in their imagination than what reality would actually bring. The Stoic sees this and refuses to pay that unnecessary tax. He waits for facts before he suffers. He waits for certainty before he reacts. He trains his mind to stop building mountains from shadows. The untrained mind multiplies pain. It imagines scenarios that have not happened. It interprets silence as insult. It views delay as rejection. It cannot sit still. It adds layers of suffering through belief, assumption, and misperception. This is why Stoicism begins with thought discipline. Because if you do not command your thinking will command you. The trained mind separates fact from fear. It separates discomfort from danger. It separates what hurts from what harms. This separation is a result of repetition, of inquiry, of conscious habit. The Stoic learns to stay where his feet are. He learns to wait before judging. He learns to return to the present moment without panic. This is not a luxury. It is a necessity if you are to live well in an unstable world. Chapter 3. Avoiding distraction as moral duty. Few people treat distraction as a moral issue, but the Stoics did. They saw attention as the beginning of character. If your focus is scattered, your actions will be unfocused. If your attention is captured by what is shallow, your decisions will lack depth. They viewed wasted attention as a silent decay of the self. It was not just poor time management, it was failure to govern the mind. What you give your focus to reflects what you consider worthy. What you consider worthy shapes how you speak, how you move, how you treat others, and how you spend your life. Attention becomes identity. Attention shapes reputation. What you focus on is what you become familiar with. If your thoughts are shaped by noise, then your judgment will be shaped by that same noise. This is not a minor error. This is a foundational mistake. If you waste your attention, you weaken your structure. The mind begins to chase novelty. The emotions begin to dominate decisions. Priorities become confused. The day is filled, but not directed. And as structure collapses, confusion increases. The person drifts from clarity. They lose the strength to say no. They allow impulse to replace order. The Stoics saw this clearly. They trained against it as a form of daily correction. This mental drift is dangerous. It leads to the loss of agency. When you no longer own your attention, your thoughts are guided by others. Your energy is drained by what does not matter. Your principles fade under a constant flood of distraction. This is not abstract. It affects how you respond to criticism. It affects whether you finish what you start. It affects whether you can be relied on. The Stoics were strict with their thoughts. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You are not compelled to form a judgment." He wrote this as instruction to himself. It was not written for others. It was a correction to keep him anchored. He understood the mind reacts quickly, and he understood that fast reactions often carry hidden falsehoods. You are not required to interpret everything. You are allowed to observe without conclusion. You are allowed to withdraw your attention. This discipline of attention is one of the hardest forms of Stoic practice. To do it requires self-awareness. You must catch your thoughts before they scatter. You must notice where they tend to drift. You must interrupt the reflex to absorb what is loud or trending. You must see when emotion is changing your view of the facts. You must learn to pause, and in that pause, choose silence over reaction. That silence is not absence. It is presence with purpose. It is strength without noise. In a world full of demands, guarding attention becomes a rare act of self-governance. The person who can remain focused in chaos is not lucky. They are trained. They do not owe every moment of awareness to the world. They return that awareness to what is essential, to the task, to the role, to the value they chose in advance. This is how the Stoic protects the core from invasion. The Stoic does not disappear from the world. They re-enter it deliberately. They do fewer things, but with more intensity. They are harder to distract because they are anchored in structure. Their mind becomes a stronghold. Their attention becomes a tool. Their life becomes proof of what it means to live with aim. This hidden layer of Stoic practice is what gives the rest of the philosophy its power. Without it, the rest collapses. Chapter 4. Temperance is accuracy, not denial. Temperance is often mistaken for rejection. It is misinterpreted as refusal, restraint, or avoidance. The Stoics defined it more clearly. It is the skill of using things rightly. It is the ability to engage with clarity and proportion. Temperance is not the absence of pleasure. It is the ability to place pleasure in its proper place. Temperance means the mind governs desire instead of obeying it. It is the decision to maintain order when impulse presses for more. It brings structure into areas where excess usually thrives: speech, appetite, possessions, ambition, entertainment. The Stoic practices temperance not as a rule, but as a reflection of clarity. He does not eliminate experience. He adjusts it to what supports reason and integrity. The Stoic does not fear appetite or enjoyment. He observes them. He defines the line between use and misuse. He watches where desire shifts from healthy to harmful. He examines which habits create need without purpose. He identifies what he can remove without loss. He aligns his choices to match what supports discipline, focus, and reason. Temperance sharpens judgment. When you know the difference between want and need, your decisions become cleaner. When you train your body to stop at enough, your mind becomes stronger. When you speak only what serves clarity, your words carry more weight. This is the connection between temperance and strength. It keeps you from being weakened by your own cravings. Temperance is about knowing how much is enough. The Stoic eats until the body is fed, not until the mind is satisfied. He speaks to be clear, not to be heard. He rests to restore energy, not to escape difficulty. He seeks balance in all things because balance supports judgment. He does not follow habit blindly. He tests it. He looks at what each action produces and keeps what is useful. He is not driven by trend, convenience, or indulgence. He is directed by purpose. It is easy to let excess hide under routine. The Stoic inspects what others accept. He reviews behavior not to shame himself, but to keep the structure firm. He knows that excess leads to weakness. What once was a choice becomes a craving. What once was a tool becomes a trap. He does not wait for breakdown. He corrects early. He stays alert. He tracks the difference between repetition and dependence. He pays attention to what fills time and what strengthens it. He trains himself to notice when a preference becomes an expectation and when an expectation becomes a demand. The Stoic sees that freedom depends on voluntary limits. If something owns your attention, it owns part of your will. Temperance protects the will. Practicing temperance is not a rejection of life. It is a deeper commitment to it. The Stoic makes space for what matters by limiting what does not. He frees his time, sharpens his energy, and protects his peace by living within right limits. This is not rigid. It is deliberate. It allows life to be lived with presence rather than compulsion. Each day brings new offers, new desires, and new distractions. These come in many forms: requests, temptations, habits, demands, and expectations. Some are external, some are internal. Each one asks for a piece of your time, your energy, or your attention. Without clear judgment, they blend into your day without resistance. Without temperance, they occupy space that should belong to your priorities. The Stoic responds with temperance. He begins by pausing. He evaluates what enters. He measures the cost of every commitment. He asks whether this thing serves clarity or disrupts it. He does not treat every opportunity as a requirement. He does not treat every desire as a signal to act. He does not treat every distraction as harmless. He filters what is presented. He selects what aligns. He declines what does not fit the structure. He considers what fits. He measures value, not volume. He builds habits that support attention. He breaks habits that create dependence. He knows that every decision creates a pattern, and every pattern shapes the next. He does not need variety to feel alive. He needs direction. He chooses what he will engage with. He protects space for thought and action that serve his purpose. This is the function of temperance, right proportion in thought and behavior. He lets go of what adds noise. He does not argue with every voice. He does not chase every impulse. He observes where his energy is being pulled and reclaims it. He respects silence. He respects simplicity. He respects his own limit as a human being. There is only so much time. There is only so much focus. He refuses to give these away freely. He remains capable of enjoyment, but not dependent on it. He is not ruled by craving. He is not governed by boredom. He allows joy without being led by it. He allows rest without being weakened by it. He remains active in the world, but not consumed by it. He serves a clear aim, and that aim defines what he accepts. His freedom does not come from detachment. It comes from self-governance. He does not need extremes to feel alive. He understands that clarity is found in rhythm, not chaos. He trains his attention toward depth rather than noise. He honors the work in front of him. He honors the value of simplicity. He lives without excess. He finds depth in the middle path, the place where action is deliberate and emotion is stable. This is the quiet skill of temperance. It does not demand praise. It does not require display. It holds the structure together. This is what makes freedom possible. Chapter 5. Discipline is internal alignment. Discipline is the structure that supports your principles. It is the application of decision. It does not rely on external motivation. It grows from consistency. The Stoics understood discipline as alignment between values and behavior. It is not built through inspiration. It is built through repetition. Discipline creates reliability. It makes your actions predictable to yourself. It limits hesitation. It strengthens your relationship with effort. When you act with discipline, you know why you act. You do not need persuasion. You do not rely on mood. The decision has already been made. What remains is the execution. A Stoic does not wait to feel ready. He begins with what is required. He decides once, then acts in accordance with that decision. His identity is not shaped by mood. It is shaped by structure. When conditions shift, his actions remain stable. This stability is not accidental. It is cultivated through deliberate choices. Each act of discipline reinforces clarity. The Stoic organizes his day by roles and responsibilities. He eliminates the need for daily debates with himself. He does not wake up and wonder if he will train, reflect, or work. These are already determined. This reduces wasted energy. It removes negotiation with excuses. It strengthens the ability to persist when tasks become dull or difficult. Discipline allows the Stoic to withstand pressure. It gives form to commitment. It protects purpose from being scattered by impulse. Each day is approached with intention. Tasks are done without emotional negotiation. The mind does not ask whether it feels like continuing. The body moves in line with what is right. This is how the Stoic becomes reliable. The reliable person does not collapse under stress. He holds to the same process in calm and in chaos. This is not a reaction to circumstances. It is a trained response. He does not become overwhelmed by temporary resistance. He does not exit structure when emotion rises. He holds his posture. He preserves his priorities. The undisciplined person drifts. They follow comfort. They avoid resistance. They change course easily. Their standards collapse when pressure rises. The Stoic trains to remove this fragility. He seeks control over habit. He studies his own tendencies. He makes decisions in advance, then holds the line. Drift begins in small compromises. Discipline closes these openings. It is maintained by choosing structure over impulse. It strengthens identity by linking values to action. The Stoic does not rely on new methods each week. He repeats what works. He builds a rhythm that does not need constant change. He understands that repetition builds mastery, and mastery reinforces identity. To build discipline, you set clear limits. You define priorities. You eliminate unnecessary options. You reduce friction by structuring your day. You do not chase efficiency. You pursue clarity. You keep promises to yourself, because breaking them weakens identity. Each time you follow through, discipline is reinforced. You build the day before it begins. You decide what matters, and you remove what does not. You choose when to act, and you protect those times from interruption. You track what drains attention. You simplify tools and routines. You do not overload the system. You reinforce your actions by removing decision fatigue. You remove uncertainty by assigning structure to time and place. These small acts combine to support the larger effort. You begin with one principle. You connect it to one behavior. You test it. You correct it. You remove what breaks the link between value and action. You simplify. You do not depend on ideal conditions. You work with what is available. You return daily to the task. You make consistency the objective. You train your mind to obey the structure you set. You develop trust in your own process. You refine one area at a time. You focus on action that matters. You eliminate what dilutes attention. You create a rhythm that is stable, not demanding. You review the system weekly and make small changes. You monitor your inputs, control your focus, and return to the baseline when distraction appears. This is how you train continuity. This is how you reduce emotional reactivity. Evening reflection is part of this training. You review where you succeeded and where you slipped. You adjust the process. You do not make excuses. You correct. You return. The Stoic does not expect perfection. He expects persistence. He expects effort. He expects consistency. The reflection is not a judgment of worth. It is an act of refinement. You observe how action matched principle. You observe where attention drifted. You identify where structure broke down. You revise. This is how you prevent patterns from weakening. This is how you maintain a disciplined life. Reflection builds awareness. It improves accuracy. It teaches cause and effect. It makes self-correction possible without shame. You look at the input, the reaction, the result. You study your own structure without bias. You compare actions to purpose. This gives you feedback. That feedback shapes your next decision. Each review makes the next day more intentional. This internal alignment makes discipline sustainable. It is not held together by willpower alone. It is maintained through rhythm. Wake, work, reflect, sleep. Each phase supports the next. The Stoic becomes disciplined not because he is special, but because he treats every day as practice. He understands that small actions carry weight. The daily structure becomes the environment in which character develops. Identity is shaped by steady follow-through. Emotional resistance fades through repetition. Clarity increases through action. The Stoic builds a system that supports this. It is a quiet, private effort. It is slow and stable. It is built to endure. This is how discipline becomes a way of life. Discipline is the proof that you are in control of your direction. It is the evidence that your philosophy is real. It is how you show the world and yourself that your principles are active, not theoretical. This is the work few see, but it is the work that matters most. It is not defined by intensity. It is defined by stability. The Stoic values this structure because it keeps life ordered, focused, and useful. Without this alignment, the rest of the practice loses its foundation. Chapter 6. Endurance as a function of strength. Endurance is the capacity to remain steady through difficulty. It is the ability to continue acting in alignment with your values, regardless of emotional strain, discomfort, or external conditions. The Stoics viewed endurance not as passive survival, but as the active choice to persist. Life will include fatigue, hardship, rejection, failure, and loss. These are not signs that something is wrong. They are features of human life. The Stoic accepts this without protest. He does not demand comfort from the world. He demands structure from himself. He prepares for the reality that effort does not guarantee ease. He does not seek to control every outcome. He seeks to control how he responds. Discomfort is not treated as a personal injustice. It is recognized as a condition that must be faced. The Stoic does not add complaints to the weight of challenge. He conserves energy by focusing only on what action is required. Endurance is not about hiding pain. It is about not abandoning your role in the presence of it. You wake up, you do the work, you return to the task, even when conditions are unfavorable. The Stoic sees pain as data. He studies what it teaches. He adapts his response. He does not seek to eliminate all difficulty. He prepares to meet it. He evaluates pain by asking whether it prevents action or simply makes it harder. If action remains possible, he continues. He does not view discomfort as an excuse to delay what must be done. He knows that effort under strain builds capacity. He does not romanticize hardship. He studies it with clarity and responds with discipline. This pattern is practiced daily. The strength to endure is built in advance. It is shaped by daily practice, mental rehearsal, and the refusal to be ruled by emotion. The Stoic builds a mind that can stay calm in tension. He prepares for setbacks before they arrive. This preparation is internal. It is private. It is reinforced in the quiet spaces of ordinary life. He rehearses difficult moments. He imagines loss, pain, fatigue, and delay. He creates mental stability by exploring these outcomes before they occur. This rehearsal gives him familiarity. Familiarity makes room for action. His responses are tested when things are easy, so they do not collapse when things are hard. The training is invisible, but its effect is visible in crisis. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, preparation for adversity. They visualized obstacles so that when difficulty appeared, they could act clearly. This training makes space for composure. It removes panic. It reduces shock. It allows the Stoic to say, "I expected this. I know what to do." This is not pessimism. It is awareness. This is not detachment. It is preparation. The Stoic creates readiness by imagining setbacks in specific detail. He considers how his principles apply in those scenarios. He decides in advance how to behave. This reduces hesitation. It increases his ability to remain composed when things change suddenly. Each act of endurance builds resilience. Every time you remain steady under pressure, your structure is reinforced. Your confidence becomes internal. It no longer depends on smooth conditions. You gain trust in your own ability to stay upright. Endurance expands capacity. What was once barely tolerable becomes manageable. What was once disorienting becomes familiar. The Stoic does not look for praise in this. He seeks alignment. His goal is not to appear strong, but to stay consistent. With each test, he sharpens his posture. With each trial, he affirms his preparation. This is how inner strength is formed. Endurance is the act of continuing. It is the decision to remain present. It is the strength to hold your principles through discomfort. The Stoic develops this strength because he knows life will test him. He does not wait to build it. He trains daily. He sharpens the edge before it is needed. He builds this strength during the ordinary day. He faces cold. He wakes early. He works while tired. He restrains unnecessary speech. He does not treat daily resistance as a problem. He sees it as a resource. Each time he chooses structure over ease, he reinforces endurance. These repetitions add up. They prepare him to face larger burdens without collapse. Chapter 7. Clarity before judgment. The Stoics placed clarity before judgment. They believed the first response is rarely the right one. What appears urgent may not be important. What feels offensive may not be harmful. What sounds true may not be accurate. The Stoic trains himself to pause. He creates space between perception and reaction. He allows time for reason to lead. Clarity begins with observation. The Stoic notices what is happening without immediately assigning meaning. He separates what is fact from what is interpretation. He pays attention to details without forming conclusions. He holds judgment until more is seen. He understands that beliefs shape feelings. To change the feeling, you must examine the belief. The mind must learn to slow down. He uses observation to collect data without rushing to narrative. He watches body language. He listens to tone. He notices timing. He evaluates the behavior without assuming motive. He treats the moment as a report, not a verdict. This habit protects him from false certainty and reaction driven by incomplete information. When something disturbs the Stoic, he asks questions. What happened? What part of this is within my control? What story am I telling myself? Is that story necessary? These questions create distance between the event and the emotion. In that distance, clarity grows. He uses these questions as tools to delay impulse. He identifies assumptions. He examines whether the interpretation is useful. He asks if the current response will solve anything. These pauses do not stop action. They guide it. They give direction to the next step. They prevent escalation. They prevent unnecessary words. They allow time to choose the correct approach. Clarity does not mean delay, it means precision. The Stoic responds after reflection. His response is clean. It matches the situation. It is not exaggerated by ego or distorted by fear. This type of clarity requires discipline. It is not built in the moment of conflict. It is prepared through practice. The Stoic trains the mind to see clearly before deciding. He does this in everyday interactions. When an unexpected demand appears, he waits before saying yes or no. When emotion rises in response to criticism, he evaluates the claim before defending himself. When someone behaves poorly, he looks at the situation without interpreting intent. These practices form the habit of careful response. Training for clarity happens in daily life. When insulted, the Stoic does not strike back immediately. He studies the words. He examines his own reaction. He chooses whether to respond or remain silent. When interrupted, he notes the urge to speak, then returns to the task. When plans are disrupted, he adjusts instead of complaining. Each of these moments is practice. In practice, he watches the moment when emotion tries to lead. He tracks how quickly judgments form. He observes the link between thought and speech. He works to slow the process. He learns to stay still until his judgment is formed. He becomes comfortable with delay. He becomes confident in quiet. He does not compete with noise. He filters action through reason. The Stoic does not trust emotion as a source of judgment. Emotion gives energy, but not direction. Judgment must be formed by reason. He does not allow his mind to race without examination. He holds it steady. He asks what is essential, and he discards the rest. He recognizes that emotion often amplifies threat and distorts meaning. He watches it without obeying it. He lets it pass without attaching to it. He does not suppress it. He studies it, and then he moves forward with reason. This method gives him room to choose. That space between feeling and reaction is where clarity is formed. Clarity supports every other virtue. Without clarity, courage becomes recklessness. Without clarity, temperance becomes suppression. Without clarity, justice becomes bias. The Stoic protects his clarity because it keeps his entire structure intact. When the mind is clear, action has direction. When thought is steady, judgment has weight. Each virtue relies on accurate perception. The Stoic trains this perception daily. He does not leave it to chance. He treats it as essential to character and strength. In the moment of pressure, the Stoic returns to what is true. He strips away assumption. He strips away urgency. He looks at what remains. From there, he decides. From there, he acts. This is how he remains calm. This is how he preserves strength. This is how he keeps control of himself when the world tries to pull him apart. He does not expect peace from the outside. He maintains order on the inside. That internal order allows him to think clearly while others react. It allows him to move with purpose when others hesitate. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is precise, and it holds. Chapter 8. Speech is a test of character. The Stoics treated speech as a direct extension of thought. They believed that careless language revealed careless thinking. Every word reflects what the speaker values, prioritizes, or misunderstands. Speech is not neutral. It reveals order or disorder in the mind. To speak clearly, the Stoic must think clearly. He filters his words through reason before releasing them into the world. He does not speak to impress or provoke. He selects words that match his values and serve a purpose. He speaks what is needed, not what is easy. His language is shaped by clarity, precision, and responsibility. Words should serve understanding, not performance. He avoids vague statements and emotional exaggeration. He cuts unnecessary details. He says only what adds value. Each sentence is a decision. He avoids speech that signals status or superiority. He avoids speaking to gain approval. His words are shaped by what is useful to the listener and what aligns with reason. Silence is often preferable to unnecessary speech. The Stoic does not fill space with commentary. He resists the urge to explain himself endlessly or justify his choices with noise. He uses language with restraint, knowing that excess weakens the message. He does not confuse conversation with constant speech. He does not mistake interruption for involvement. He lets silence speak when words would cloud the point. He allows gaps in conversation to preserve focus. He does not speak to remove discomfort. He speaks when there is something worth saying. He understands that silence can express thought more clearly than speech. He asks 3 questions before speaking. Is it true? Is it necessary? Does it benefit the listener? These questions guide him away from gossip, exaggeration, or empty opinion. They create a barrier between thought and expression. This discipline protects the speaker's integrity and the listener's time. Truth is tested through reason. Necessity is measured against purpose. Benefit is judged by clarity, not pleasure. These filters stop reactive speech. They reduce noise. They increase weight. By applying these questions, the Stoic keeps his speech aligned with his values. He avoids wasting energy or damaging relationships with careless words. When speaking, the Stoic matches tone to purpose. He speaks calmly during conflict. He speaks directly during confusion. He speaks slowly when emotions rise. The rhythm of speech reflects the condition of the mind. Controlled speech signals controlled thought. He knows that speed and tone reveal the state of his inner world. Fast speech reveals anxiety. Harsh speech reveals agitation. Wandering speech reveals scattered thought. He trains his voice to reflect steadiness. Calm tone shows clarity. Measured pace shows thought. Precision shows presence. This practice gives his words weight and allows others to listen without resistance. The Stoic avoids language that provokes division. He avoids sarcasm, flattery, or insult. He uses clarity instead of volume. He uses questions instead of accusation. He listens before answering. He does not interrupt. These actions show discipline, not submission. He treats dialogue as a shared effort. He focuses on listening with full attention. He corrects when necessary, but without aggression. He does not chase the last word. He does not dominate a room through force of speech. His language invites reflection. It signals control, not competition. Speech is where theory becomes public. A Stoic who cannot speak without irritation, exaggeration, or confusion has not fully applied the principles he claims to follow. Speech is where restraint is tested. It is where values must hold. The moment words leave the mouth, they show the structure behind them. They show how well a person has trained their mind. They reveal whether principles are applied or memorized. Speech is where the Stoic proves his thought is disciplined. It is where he demonstrates emotional control without explanation. Speech reveals the thinking pattern behind it. In a single sentence, it becomes clear whether a person has paused before speaking or reacted without thought. If speech is filled with exaggeration, defense, or confusion, it reflects a lack of internal order. If it is clean, focused, and relevant, it reflects structure. The Stoic listens to his own voice to detect drift in his mind. Words do not lie. They trace the path of thought. To master speech, the Stoic must first master thought. He removes assumptions. He clarifies meaning. He tests whether the words are needed. He respects the power of language, and he refuses to use it carelessly. This is how the Stoic speaks with strength. He builds this strength through daily examination. He watches his thoughts before they become speech. He notices where emotion attempts to distort meaning. He simplifies the message until only what is essential remains. He corrects vague or imprecise thinking. He selects language that serves reason, not ego. Each phrase is shaped to reflect clarity. He sees each sentence as a signal of character. He treats every conversation as an opportunity to practice clarity. He sharpens his thinking by choosing his words with care. He does not fear speaking when necessary, and he does not rush to speak when silence is better. In this way, his voice becomes steady, his presence becomes known, and his speech becomes a reflection of his internal order. He avoids using speech to mask insecurity. He avoids using silence to escape duty. His communication reflects alignment. He knows when to assert, when to listen, and when to remain still. His confidence does not rest on volume or certainty. It rests on structure. Every word becomes a test of that structure. This is how speech becomes a moral act. It is not decoration. It is not performance. It is a measurement of self-control, of understanding, of value. The Stoic trains his mind so that when he speaks, the words carry weight. He does not waste language. He does not borrow tone. He creates presence through precision. Speech is not something to master in isolation. It is integrated with judgment, emotion, and will. It is where the inner life becomes visible. When speech is clear, steady, and useful, it reflects a mind that is clear, steady, and useful. This is the standard the Stoic holds. This is the test he applies to himself. Chapter 9. Justice begins with responsibility. Justice for the Stoics was more than law or fairness. It was the active commitment to treat others with integrity, to uphold truth, and to serve the common good without seeking reward. Justice was not only social, it was personal. It began with responsibility for one's own actions. The Stoic starts by removing blame. He does not project fault onto others for what results from his own decisions. He does not claim injury where there is only inconvenience. He accepts full ownership of how he acts, speaks, and responds. This mindset builds the foundation for right conduct. Justice requires consistency. The Stoic does not apply one standard to himself and another to others. He does not excuse his own anger while condemning someone else's. He does not ask for mercy while giving judgment. He examines behavior by principle, not by preference. The Stoic views justice as a daily practice. It is not limited to large decisions. It appears in how he treats co-workers, how he speaks to strangers, how he listens to family. It shapes how he handles power and how he responds to weakness. Every action reveals his commitment or his deviation from what is just. He trains this habit through small corrections. When tempted to speak carelessly, he chooses honesty. When it is easier to ignore a need, he steps forward. When he sees wrong, he does not wait for permission to oppose it. He uses what he has to create order. He uses his voice to protect dignity. These efforts are quiet, but they are constant. The Stoic also practices justice by not feeding resentment. He does not carry old injuries into new situations. He does not punish one person for another's mistake. He does not seek revenge. He returns injury with clarity, not cruelty. This does not make him passive. It makes him fair. To be just is to be trustworthy. The Stoic does not manipulate others for personal gain. He does not exaggerate to win attention. He does not pretend to help when his aim is advantage. He keeps his motives clean. He checks for hidden agendas. He values alignment more than outcome. Justice, at its root, is respect for order. The Stoic respects that order must be maintained both within and between people. He holds his position without pride. He serves without seeking credit. He treats no one as beneath him and no one as above principle. This is how he honors justice, not through words, but through steady, reasoned action. Chapter 10. The Hidden Root of Stoic Power. The Stoic path does not depend on appearance, praise, or approval. Its strength is hidden in the structure of the mind. The source of Stoic power is the ability to govern one's inner world. The root is self-mastery. Self-mastery is the capacity to direct thought, action, and emotion by principle rather than impulse. It is the strength to remain steady while others sway. It is the decision to act from reason, even in discomfort. The Stoic develops this power in quiet, through practice. It is not the result of talent. It is the result of repetition. Each part of Stoic discipline contributes to this hidden root. Attention is guarded, speech is filtered, action is intentional, judgment is delayed until clarity is reached. Emotion is studied, not obeyed. Each part reinforces the others. The structure holds. This strength is not loud. It is not dramatic. It reveals itself when others panic, and the Stoic stays still. It shows when others argue, and the Stoic listens. It appears when circumstances shift, and the Stoic remains aligned. He does not need to declare control. He demonstrates it through calm. The hidden root of Stoic power is in the refusal to be owned by desire, fear, or approval. It is the ability to live as directed by reason. The Stoic understands that reward is not always tied to virtue. Praise does not always follow discipline. Recognition does not always meet integrity, but he holds his structure anyway. He maintains his alignment because it reflects his commitment to live by principle, not reaction. He shapes his direction according to internal standards. His values define what he aims for. His goals reflect what supports the life of reason. The Stoic is not drawn into emotional debts. He does not give away control of his mind to those who flatter or insult. His sense of direction is stable. He knows that clarity is lost when every emotion is followed, so he remains still under pressure. His posture is chosen, not borrowed. His mood does not decide his conduct. His identity is built on action aligned with thought. This structure makes him difficult to provoke, difficult to sway, difficult to move off course. His responses are not random, they are tested and selected. His power does not depend on approval. It rests in the consistency of his own actions. He cannot be baited by insult or bribed by praise. He remains unmoved by shallow opinion. He studies motive before he responds. He guards the influence of others with care. He does not react to gain favor. He does not speak to win applause. He speaks to convey reason. He listens for truth, not attention. This mindset protects his freedom. It allows him to stand in a room without performing. It allows him to disagree without aggression. It gives him presence that is not loud, but firm. His goal is not to control others. It is to maintain order within himself. He is not concerned with reputation if it costs principle. He is not driven to dominate space or people. He is focused on governing his own posture. He builds a form of control that cannot be taken because it was never built on what others think or feel. His focus is not on debate, but discipline, not on opinion, but structure. He does not measure victory by applause, but by alignment. The real test is not who agrees with him. The test is whether his action matches his values under stress. He trains quietly. He reviews his conduct. He observes where judgment slipped. He returns to the same fundamentals: attention, speech, action, thought. He does this even when no reward appears. This repetition sharpens his identity. It strengthens trust in his own steadiness. He becomes a person who can carry responsibility without collapse, a person who can hold position in difficulty, a person who can stay silent when others shout, and clear when others are confused. He understands that reputation can shift, but discipline must hold. That emotion can rise, but structure must remain. That success may come or go, but self-governance is non-negotiable. His strength is not situational. It is built through practice that does not need permission. His work is often unseen, but it is deeply embedded. It is the source of his calm. It is the reason he can respond without panic, speak without rush, act without regret. This is the root. It is not decoration. It is not performance. It is the core strength that shapes all external action. It is not given. It is earned. It is not displayed. It is proven. It is developed when no one is watching and revealed when everyone is reacting. It is tested in noise, but formed in silence. This is Stoic power. It cannot be taken because it does not come from others. It comes from within.